Welcome to the Pitmaster Podcast. We're barbecue competition competitors that aim to share information, advice, tips, and tall tales about our favorite pastime. Head over to the pitmasterpodcast.com for all things Pitmasters, or follow us on your favorite social media platform. And now, here are the hosts of the Pitmaster Podcast, the two-time grand champion, SCA World Champion finalist, and barbecue specialist of Smoke Ain't No Joke Barbecue, the Anthony Lujan, and the 24-time grand and reserve grand champion, reserve world grand champion, Windover High Roller champion, and the founder of Pitmaster Barbecue Supply Company stores in Utah, the old man himself from Big Johnson's Barbecue, Jesse Johnson.
This is Greg Rempe from the Barbecue Central Show, and you are listening to the Pitmasters Podcast, and they are doing it live.
We'll do it live.
That's right, Bill. I just said that. They're going to do it live.
We'll do it live.
Yes, live. They're going to do it live.
What up, Pitmasters? We are live again on Tuesday night. We have a special guest tonight. We have Phil from LC BBQ coming from Bandera, Texas. You excited for this show, Jesse?
I am. I got to meet LC when he came up and cooked in the Norute State Championships up in Riverdale this year, and I got a new weekend for that. That's I've got to get it approved with the KCBS, but had to change the date for the venue, so we're going to be changing that. And then once I get that set, I'm going to put all the rest of the barbecue comps together and have a list, and we'll start pushing for our first one in April.
Hell yeah!
So. Yeah.
Before we get too deep in the show, I want to wish you a happy birthday. What, you're 30,
thank you.
31? You're looking like you're 31, 32.
I'm 59, and I have never felt my age until this year. So we were talking about your inflammation and all the stuff you've been talking about on your social media, and inflammation is something you deal with on a regular basis when you train heavy and as you get older, and
right.
The more you can decrease the inflammation, the healthier you'll be, and the heavier you're going to be able to train. So,
right.
We trained heavy last night. We went heavy. We had guys. We got a couple guys in the gym that are benching 800. Another guy doing 900, and we got one guy that's pushing 1,050. He's hoping to bench 1,100 this year in a tested championship this year. So it'll be interesting.
That's that's a Volkswagen Bug.
yeah. Well, Tractor Baptist, who Nathan, who works for us from time to time at all the Pitmaster locations, he still has the biggest squat on the planet. And a few years ago, I competed at FitCon, and I was dialed in, and it was outside, so it was brutal. So I got a nice big squat, and it was an open tested world record at 744. And Tractor's basically done double that. He's done 1311.
Jesus, that's a
Volkswagen Bug.
Yeah, that really is.
And I was glad I was there to witness it, because everybody in the lifting community, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, their squat wasn't deep enough. And I'm a certified judge in 2 different federations, and his squat was absolutely legit and deep, because it's hard to imagine where the hip crease is, and that's what they look for in a squat, because Tractor's legs are as big as my waist. So in order to judge where the hip crease is, you've got to have a really good sharp knowledge about where that hip crease is, and man, he was deep. It was nice. It was incredible. So anyway, I digress. Yeah. I know we're talking here to talk about barbecue, and we're talking about inflammation and lifting weights.
Yeah, well, it's true. Inflammation is huge, right? When you're competing and everything like that, competition barbecue or lifting weights, it still hurts.
Yeah, think about walking around all day. Right. Most of the time we're cooking on cement or asphalt. We do all these fun competitions in parking lots. Yeah, very rare that you get to cook on grass, which is, and a lot of people go, "I hate cooking on grass." I was like, you have no idea what you're talking about, kid.
Unless they watered that shit the night before, and then it's 95
that's probably
degrees.
that's on the promoter himself to make sure that grass is dry and you're not sinking in mud holes when you're in the grass. But anyway,
Well, I'm traveling to St. George on Friday to go compete in Utah's first SCA competition of the season. Pretty stoked.
So you got steaks. What's the ancillaries?
Ribs,
man. Right?
There's ribs, and then there's the nacho category as well.
Nacho Libre.
Yep. So I signed up to judge that. I decided not to cook it after all the questions. I just said, you know what? I'm traveling. I'm just going to enjoy myself. So I signed up to hopefully be able to judge nachos and maybe a steak B. So we'll see.
Awesome.
So,
who's running that comp? Is it
Vince from SCA Vince is what I don't know his last name off the top of my head.
Gotcha.
But
tell you what, we're spoiled in this market to have Terrell run most of the SCA events. I think she does such an amazing job as basically the organizer for the SCA. Love her to death. She's phenomenal. So
yeah, but she shifted gears a little bit on us, and she's focusing on that world foods. World foods comes first, and I get it. I get it.
Gotta have that hustle, man. She got hired. She got to do the job.
Exactly. Well, yeah, like I said before, everybody visit the pitmasterspodcast.com to go see the newest events that are available. And if you are a promoter and you're listening to the show and you need to get your show out there, give us a message and we will get you on the website just so people can sign up for your events. And also,
I haven't heard back from Rod Gray from the KCBS yet, but the Norute State Barbecue Championships, we're going to be doing the first weekend in May.
Mark your calendars for May.
Yeah, I think it's the 2nd and 3rd, if I remember right. I haven't got the approval yet. Hopefully we can get that done in the next couple of days, and I can set the entire schedule for all the backyard team. Because I've had a couple of teams call today about when's the schedule coming out? When's the schedule coming out? I'm like, I'm waiting on the KCBS right now. Then I'll design all the rest of the schedule around the SCA so we're not stepping on Steve Johnson's toes with barbecue pit stop, and then making sure there's some gaps in there so people can. It gets expensive to cook all these competitions, man. Right. So I understand it's a budget constraint sometimes.
Yep. So since changing locations, does that qualify as a first-year comp and all we need is 15 cooks for a qualifier?
Same location. So we got to get to 25, and I've been assured by the venue that we're going to have plenty of space, because last year I lost sleep for 3 days worrying about fitting 29 So
right. Well, I might buy a trailer, Jesse. So I'm going to have to go back in my same spot with the trailer.
That's all good. We got, we had less of the, I call them the redwoods guys showing up with those 45-foot toy haulers. Right. We had less of those this year than we normally have had. Usually you got Fidel showing up in one. You got David show up in one. You got a couple more guys always showing up in those big, and Crooked Pig showing up in a big old trailer. We had Colorado Bulldogs. I mean, that's a lot of redwood to build those trailers.
For sure, right? Well, we've had Phil on hold for too long already.
Let's get him in here. We got questions.
Yeah, we need answers. And I think he has a podcast that he's going to after this, so we got to respect the timeline and tune into that show right after this one as well. So let's get going.
We call it Thermapen 1, the first true 1-second cooking thermometer. Its unprecedented speed means Thermapen 1's responsiveness approaches the speed of thought. Because when you're plating the perfect menu or smoking the perfect side of barbecue, you don't have time to think about how your instant read thermometer is accurate to 0.5 degrees in 1 second or less, or how rugged and waterproof it is, or how big, elegant and bright the backlit display is. You'll just know it works, because our perfection powers your perfection. Seek perfection with Thermapen 1.
Welcome to the show, Phil. How are you?
Hey, I'm good. What's up, fellas?
Not much, man. Have I had too many bourbons already? Your background's blurry. Seems like
we can make it not blurry if it makes you feel better.
No, I'm just messing with that.
It's just that beard is so fierce, it's got to throw off the background.
It'll do that.
Yep, that's legit, brother.
Well, man, that's awesome. Well, let's just start off the show with people might not know who you are as a person. They just know you by the rub. Let's tell people a little bit about your history and, how you got into this barbecue world.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm Phil Breeden, owner of LC BBQ. It's my competition team name as well. Man, I got started in this gig back in 2015. So I've been competing for 10 years now. And man, I don't know, probably like everybody else, it wasn't anything I intended on getting into. I just kind of stumbled upon it, I guess, and then and did a contest, did well, and then it snowballed from there, and then snowballed and snowballed and snowballed. So got pretty serious around 2018. The first few years I only did 10 or 12 cook-offs a year, and man, it was fun. And at that point, it was much more of a hobby. And in 2018, this wasn't planned either, but I cooked in January, early January, and then I cooked the next weekend, and then I cooked the next weekend, and I'm like, crap, I've gone cook 3 weekends in a row, which at the time seemed like a really big deal. And then, man, I looked up and it was 37 weeks later. I done cooked every weekend in between. So I just kind of started cooking every weekend. I'm in Texas, so we don't really have an off season. It pretty much goes year round. And we don't have one on Christmas weekend, however that falls. And Thanksgiving's sometimes we do have one, sometimes we don't. So, man, it's pretty much 50 weeks a year we get to cook, and you throw in some doubles, and so I compete 50 times a year, and I've been doing that since 2018. The only year that I didn't, 2024 was 51. The year before was 51. I think the year before was 50. 20, we had COVID, so a lot of the cook-offs were, they just weren't happening, right? The kind of the country shut down, and I did 35 contests in 2020. So, yeah, man, I just like to compete. I cook a lot. I don't know. One weekend after a couple of years of competing, I decided I'm going to take the weekend off, and I did, and I mowed the yard at the house twice. And I'm like,
I missed this spot.
Dad, you need to go to a cook-off. Don't take off no more. You need to go to cook-off. So I kind of don't know what to do with my hands if I'm not competing. But 2018 it got serious, and then I wasn't very good at chicken when I started, and I tried a lot of different products that I couldn't get to work, and for me anyway. And I started kind of getting crazy and putting some stuff together, and came up with foul play, what ended up being foul play that I ran for a couple of years before I had the bright idea, like, man, this stuff is really good. And I won a lot of chicken, man. I should probably put this in a bag and sell it. And I didn't know how to do that, but I started asking some questions, and some friends helped me out and pointed me in the right direction. And then bam, all of a sudden we've got a product in a bag, and man, that's how LC BBQ was born. And that was the first of what is now 13 products. So fast forward a bunch of years later, and man, here we are.
Yeah, geez, yeah. I'm just
you see a lot of teams using your products too, and you're talking about starting off with 10 or 12 competitions. That's the most I've ever been able to do in a year in Utah because we're so isolated. And Anthony, how many barbecue competitions? What's the most you've ever cooked in a year?
KCBS,
backyard KCBS.
Maybe
what's the most you've ever done?
5.
Yeah.
Maybe, and while you're talking about that, Phil, I'm just like, and this dude launched an entire product line in between all that. You said you stayed home and mowed the lawn twice. I don't even know when you fit time to do this product line, but we'll get in that down the road. But Jesus, you are cooking a ton. That's awesome. That is awesome.
Man. I don't know. I've been full-time barbecue since 21. So 4 years now I've been full-time LC barbecue. Before that, 25 years in electrical distribution, kind of fancy for a parts house or whatnot. But man, we sold electrical parts to large contractors, mainly commercial work or whatnot. But it just kind of came to the fork in the road in 21. And, I just got so busy with LC, and then my work's really busy. I'm working well over 100 hours a week, plus competing. I mean, it was really cutting into my sleep, to where the point, something's got to give. I just can't, you can't do any more. And I went full-time barbecue. So, at first that was quite the adjustment because I just kind of got rid of 80 or 90 hours a week of my time that I was putting towards something else. And then, man, immediately I'm like, I know Carmen, my wife, is like, you need
the boss.
Talk about
the boss.
You can't, the boss. She's like, and I'm like, man, it took me good, I don't know, 3, 4, 6 months to kind of get my routines down to, just kind of what I'm doing during the week and whatnot. And, here we are 4 years later, and I'm like, man, it's kind of starting to push that threshold again to where I don't have any more time during the week. I've had no problem filling the time between developing products and, still competing. And competing is just kind of what I do. And I put all the time and effort into that Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Friday's a travel day. Then it's work right there at the comp between meat preps and making all my injections, getting everything ready. Cook on Saturday. Sometimes it depends on how far it is. I cook a lot in Texas these days. So sometimes I'm able to drive home Saturday night. If it's over 3 or 4 hours, I'll just stay, and then I'm traveling on Sunday. And then mainly Monday through Thursday, I'm pretty much in the office. The office work keeps me pretty busy till at least lunchtime, 1, 2, and I start pretty early. So I'll put 6 or 8 hours in the office at least 4 days a week. And then, in the afternoons, or just kind of where it works in on the routine, I got to go meat shop that week. I got to go, procure meats for contests. That's a full-time job in itself when you cook as much.
Yeah.
So, we stay kind of busy these days.
Yeah. And then a random podcast comes along and says, "Hey, what are you doing? Let's add to your schedule."
Man, it's okay. I like doing these things. I don't do as many. We'd have the chicken fried show, and I'm a co-host on there with Bill Purvis. And of course, I'm doing a podcast once a week these days. So I do less of other podcasts. So I'm glad you guys reached out. I really enjoy doing these things.
Thanks.
So tell us, like you're talking about, you have to procure your products. What meats are you cooking? What brands are you running? And what are some of those things?
Yeah. So, in Texas, we have this little grocery store called HEB, and, man, we're pretty fortunate to have them because, man, we've got Snake River Farms briskets in the counters. Like, we just go flip through them and get our briskets. Depending on the store, San Antonio probably has about 40 of these stores, and probably half of them carry Snake River Farms briskets. And, man, they got blacks, they got golds. So
nice.
That's about an hour one-way drive. So we'll go to town, and I'll normally buy 3, 4, 5, 6 at a time, so I don't have to do it every week. And then boom, I'm kind of stocked on my brisket. So I'm running snakes these days. As far as ribs, I like to pick out my own meat. I know a lot of people have it shipped to them, and there's a lot of good options for doing that. I just really like to pick out my meat. Look at the meat.
I do too.
It's just kind of my thing or whatever. And I've got the time built in to do it. So I just run the process like I like to do it. But, Prairie Fresh is big around these Walmarts around here. So there's also tons of Walmarts, and I can go to, hit 4 or 5 Walmarts, and, man, a lot of times get 10 or 12 racks of ribs, and I'm good for a few weeks or whatever. So I run a lot of Prairie Fresh. The HEBs will have IBPs. I like the IBPs.
Yeah,
I run Compart. It's just logistically, it's, hard getting those down from Minnesota. Sometimes it ends up being a little more expensive when, man, we can go to Walmart and get a $9 rack of Prairie Fresh. I mean, they're like $9 or $10.
Yeah.
So, anyway, it's kind of the game plan for brisket, and same thing on pork butts. They got the Prairie Fresh butts at the Walmart, so I can go select exactly what I want. And, man, even the HEBs, they'll carry HEB Naturals, and then they'll have all the other commodity brands roll through there too, Smithfield, Swift, whatnot. So a lot of times I'm just picking out what that pork butt looks like. And man, I can go in there and pick 3 or 4 of them out, and, man, take them to the meat market manager, and, hey, will you cut these monies off? And, man, he'll just whack those monies off, and I'll leave with a 4-pack of monies for about $20.
Wow.
And like I said, we're pretty fortunate.
Know your meat manager, man. That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, we're pretty fortunate to have these HEBs around here. So that you just got to make it work for you. You know what I mean? There's people from all over different parts of the country. And, if you're in a remote part of wherever that is, man, you're probably going to have your meat shipped into you, So I'll tell that to people that's taking my class, like, man, this game plan works for me logistically where I live. And you live somewhere else, and that might not work the same for you. So you just kind of got to figure it out and make it work for you to get the best meat you can have week to week.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Well, let's just start off with, you have 13 bottled products in your inventory. That is a lot to talk about, and that would probably take a couple hours. Let's just narrow this down to maybe your top 5. Let's talk about your first rub, and then we'll break off from there. So what got you into the rub game?
Yeah. So rubs came later, but the first product was Foul Play. And I kind of mentioned that earlier as far as how that came about. And once Foul Play came out, man, a lot of the teams started using it right away. I had great support, and, man, a lot of, I had used this product solely for a couple of years, and I was a lot better at chicken before I released it. I became very average, it seems.
and Foul Play is an injection, correct?
That's correct. Yeah, foul
That's
play
an
is an
injection.
That's our chicken injection.
And thank you for putting it in a normal bottle. I hate the bags for as a retail location. I hate the bags.
Yeah,
I'd much rather have them in the bottle. It's so much easier to do some displays for y'all, you know.
man, it's funny you talk about that, Jesse. Like when I came out with foul play back in 2018, man, all the injections and other brands were in bags, So I naturally thought, okay, we're going to put this in a bag. Never thought about putting it in a shaker. But as we grew, we started fighting some things logistically. And when the packer is putting these in bags, it's a lot more labor intensive and
way more labor intensive. Yeah.
And it's harder to scale. So we made the switch back in, I think it was 20 or 21 when we moved all of our products to shakers. And, and we adjusted it was $20 for the injections in a bag. And then, depending on the product, they went down to say 13 ounces or whatever. You're just shy of 16 ounces. And we moved them down to $17. So, really it is the same proportionally. And it allowed us to scale the products, get our products faster, be out of product less. So I don't know. You got people who kind of like them in bags, and then you got people who like them in shakers. It was a little bit of an adjustment for me out of the gates, but man, I couldn't see going back to the bag, fighting the little reseals that get all gummed up and whatnot. So yeah, that's kind of the little back history on the bags and versus the shakers or whatnot. So, having foul play, releasing that, doing really well in the market back in 2018, my brain kind of kicked into, oh, wow, okay, so I got this really successful chicken injection. What's next? I'm like, well, I should probably have a brisket and a pork injection, was where my brain went. And I just immediately went to work developing a brisket injection. And it was like 6 months later, and the next product we released was Play Bull. Hey, what's up, Mike? So Play Bull was our next product. That's one of our brisket injections. I'll get to the other one in a minute because I get that question a lot, and I'm sure y'all got it too. So I don't know, 6-8 months after that, we came out with Bosshog, which is one of our pork injections. And then I can't really remember the order after that, guys. Sorry, it's a long time ago.
No,
it all blends.
Yeah, it definitely does blend. I can attempt to. I think after that, Rawhide was my next product, and that was our first rub. I had kind of in my brain checked some boxes as far as, man, I never, really kind of set up to build a product line. But once I started to, man, I wanted to build the product line exactly like I wanted to build it. I wasn't taking other products and trying, hey, let's go figure out how to copy that and put it in my bottle. That was never part of the plan. It was, let me build these exactly how I want. And man, I would test a lot of different versions of those as I compete. I compete a lot. So, man, let's see what the judges think about it. And, and when I felt like it's got exactly where I wanted, the judges were receptive to it. I was scoring where I needed to, normally probably 4 to 6 months on the trail before I stamp these products, and release them to the market. And that's been my MO ever since, man, I went into business. And still a lot of the approach that I go about, although the brand's gotten very broad and we've covered like a ton of things. So now some of the things that we're working on and developing is a little bit more pointed, I call it, as opposed to just kind of a broad range of pleasing overall judges. Man, we're starting to kind of get with some unique products that'll have a smaller window for market per se. So yeah.
But I tell you what, man, we sell the number one product we sell of y'all is Fade to Black.
Yeah,
that's
nice.
our number one seller. Because we have several different seasonings that got the activated charcoal in it, and prime steak was from Cosmo is probably our number 3 or 4 rub in the store.
Okay,
but I think Fade to Black has kind of taken that over, and your wife would know better, because I'm like, I need a couple more cases of Fade to Black. We keep selling the heck out of that.
Man, that's really good to hear. Man, I'm probably my worst salesman. I don't really sell my products. I don't like to sell my products. I just like to use my products, and I love to talk about my products. I just don't like to come off as a salesman. I don't oh, this is great, do this, it's just not me, but fade to black, that's
Phil, I'm going to cut you off. Before we go to fade to black. I just need to ask, with your injections, it all says water. Are you recommending like chicken broth and beef broth and apple juice for those injections?
Says water or liquid?
It says water.
Oh, okay. Where's that
at?
On your label.
It really does. Yeah.
Liquid.
Let's see. I've seen. Yeah, it says mix with water or beef broth for Playboy.
Okay.
And then I think Bosshog was, what did I see? Water, chicken, or apple juice. So yeah, they do say water.
So when I first did those, I've changed a lot of the labels, and to the point where I had a refresher on labels. I don't know, maybe a year and a half. A real kind of. I really went over a lot of them and did a few changes on them. And even now, before I do label runs, I'll tweak those to try to be as user friendly as I can to the market. When I originally released them, I had a recommended quantity out of the shaker mixed with an exact amount of liquid, and I didn't really specify. And I would get a lot of messages what liquid, and typically water or chicken broth, or if it's a beef product, beef broth, or your main ones. And of course, people use apple juice as well with their injections. Man, I developed all these products with water, and at some point, that's probably why I said water, because that's how I developed them. And then and I used them with water, and over the years, people like, oh, I was putting chicken broth, and I'm like, that's a great idea. Let me put a little chicken broth. You know what I mean? We're barbecue guys. We're never satisfied with anything, right? So the liquid is definitely up to you guys, right?
Okay.
So I'm happy to give guidance with folks and tell you my favorites, but it's either water or chicken broth or beef broth in most cases, and I'll use apple juice with Bosshog sometimes, off and on. Man, these days I'm not running any, so it's just water and broth. Yeah,
got it. Cool. And then this fade to black, I used it for my first time in Bullhead City. We sprinkled some on the sausage that we took first place in. So
nice.
It wasn't a ton, but I think it was enough to elevate it to push it over the edge.
It really does. It has a lot of pop in it. And I've never been a black rub guy. Like, I've never used black rubs. I've never really, to an extent, cared for black rubs. And I had this brainchild. Like, I have a rolling list of, like, it's really long, of these ideas. And man, that just kind of came to me one day of, man, that would be really cool if I had a black rub, but it was just super, super beefy with a lot of pop, and then still hit those salt, pepper, garlic notes that you expect with beef. And then you're able to get the contrast you're looking for out of a black rub, right? That's why you want a black rub, to me, is for the contrast, right? I think it just looks really great on a brisket. Then you slice the brisket, then you have a lot of contrast. But just doing it to get the contrast never did it for me. But when I thought of that and then developed it, I had a couple versions, and they were all kind of in the same realm. I think I had 4 or 5 different ones that I had, and I would leave them on the counter. And you can do this with fade to black too. Like, just put you a little pile right there on the edge of your counter on a plate or something. And man, I would just go by, lick my finger, and then hit that throughout the day. And man, it's really good. Just like that taste and those flavors. Anyway, I'm really proud of fade to black. It's just a really good beef rub, and it's interesting to hear all the different ways people use it. I try not to overextend telling people how to use it, because man, a lot of times they'll text me and go, "Can I do this?" I'm like, "Yes, you certainly can. There's no rules." I like people to think that way. There's no rules in barbecue, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to put any limitations on anyone. Just like you, man, hey, we put it on our sausage and we took first place. Then I had a guy the other day running it on chicken. I'm like, I never really would have thought of that, because I just don't think like black and chicken go together. But it's like, it was really, really good. So
I'm just gonna say this right now, Phil.
Yeah.
Excuse me. An easy another bottled product that you could come up with is, if you just grind that down to really, really almost to a finishing dust. You can name it like the dust of coal or something like that, and that would be fantastic on the backside of steaks for SCA.
Man, that's a great idea. Fade to black is probably very, very fine to begin with, right?
Yeah, that's a fine
but
rub.
That's
a good dust though, man. It really.
But yeah, if you could get a little bit finer, oh man, I would use that as a finishing dust on the backside of my steak all day long.
It's
I know everybody's
now.
gonna still it now. Everybody's gonna still it. It's fine.
It's powder already.
It's pretty powder.
I know, but I still feel when I was using, I still got that. It's kind of like it's still coarsey because I'm using it as a finish rub.
Yeah, you'll get particles in there. You do have ingredients that still have some coarseness, but it's just the lesser portion of it, I guess we should say.
Put it in a thumb grinder, bro, and just give a little dust at the end, man.
Yeah, I might have to do that. I might have to do that.
Because I've been teaching people.
Weekend.
I mean, I've been using it on steaks and burgers and everything else. I'll use our Big Johnson's beef rub that's got the heavy salt, pepper, onion, and garlic, and then just dust with that. So it doesn't become too salty, but man, it just kicks up the flavor tremendously.
It really does. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And yeah, we use some of your other stuff down there in Bullhead. I'm not going to announce that publicly because the rib guy is the one who turned me onto it, and I don't want to blow his recipe. That's his story to say.
Oh no, just share it. Who cares? Everybody's watching.
Yeah, that is his story to share, and I'm not that guy.
The two people that are listening, they don't cook competition, so it doesn't matter. We only got 2 people listening.
But yeah, let's talk about this one that I'm really interested in. Obviously, Jesse sells a lot of it. Is the honey hole.
Yeah,
probably perfect. Just by the name of it, it's gonna. I'm obviously straight to pork, right? So,
of course, yeah. So,
but people use it on chicken.
Man, I do run it. I'm running it on chicken these days. It's just I was like 1 part rawhide, 2 part honey hole, and I would mix those. But man, I'm just straight honey hole these days. It makes a great chicken seasoning. That's where I'm at. I'm real light on ribs with it, and certified and honey hole, I kind of interchange with like. Man, if one don't hit 1 week, I'll just put it in timeout and then I'll roll to the other one. But in the difference in those two is certified is more savory and then honey hole is obviously more sweet. So both complement pork really well. Both complement chicken really well. That's the major difference. If you're just kind of looking to lean towards the savory or lean towards the sweet is the difference in those 2 products.
What's your go-to on pork then?
I'll tell you what I use. And probably... Why don't we do it this way? I'll just tell you the products I use the most of. And one of those is going to be Last Call. Man, I use the shit out of Last Call. I use it on my brisket. I use it heavy on my ribs. I was a little lighter, but this year I'm just heavier with it and a lot more lighter with either certified or honey hole. And man, pork as well, Jesse. Man, I'm hammering it on that pork too. So yeah.
People don't realize is like for the Norute Barbecue Championship last year, y'all showed up. We had 5 teams from Texas, which was crazy. We had a team out of Florida, and you guys crushed it. You had that was number 5, right? For last year.
Let me think, Jesse. Man, I think it was number 6. Yeah, I think
was that number 6?
Yeah, it was number 6 because I went the next weekend to Blackfoot, Idaho.
Yeah.
Which was an auto, and it's just kind of the way it worked out. I felt bad about being there. But I'm like, man, that'd be some shit if I win this for 7 and I kind of take an auto away from somebody else. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have planned it out that way if I'd have known, but I didn't.
But it wouldn't have taken away somebody's. Well, if you won the GC, you would have taken away somebody's auto.
It would give me the auto, but I also had 7, so I just didn't need an auto. Once you get 6. Every qualifier is an auto, but that's just the way it fell. And man, I really felt like I had really good turn-ins barbecue at Blackfoot. And man, we finished mid-pack like 14th or 15th, somewhere in there. And I don't know, I think there was 33 teams. I think I only had 1 walk. I think I had 10th chicken. I was just like, you got to be shitting me. It felt better than last week, But
when you won everything.
Yeah, that's barbecue, right? And we left there, went up to Oregon, and then we flew out to Australia. We had that trip planned to Australia during the summer. And, it was kind of creeping up about that time where we were in Utah. I'm like, man, it's going to be some shit if we're sitting on 6 going to Australia. And sure enough, that's exactly how it played off. We did 3 comps over there. The first contest, I was 3rd overall. And I felt like my ribs got chingled a little bit. And I'm like, shit, it was a really good chance to pick up 7 because those counted over there as well, right?
Yeah.
And man, we ended up getting 7 on that last weekend. winning the Australia World Championship, which was super.
And I
cool.
didn't realize that you cooked 3 over there. I thought it was just you showed up and got your 7th in Australia.
No, we did 3 contests. That last one was a double weekend. It was the Invitational and the Open World Championship. And then Bill and I taught a couple master classes while we were over there too. And I think it was about 30 days while we were over there. So we didn't have much downtime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's wild, man. I can't 7 GCs in one season.
What was because Phil turned me on to a really good beer, and then he was dusting. What were you dusting it was the Mountain Time. Is that what the beer that you had?
Oh yeah, Chris
That
Webb.
was so good.
Chris Webb gave me that. That's a Colorado beer.
Yeah, and then we have it here at the Walmart. It's good.
He turned me on to it, and I'm like, man, that's damn good beer. You travel the country, and man, I like to drink beer and I like to drink. So I had different things, different places. We were
what rub were you putting in the beer? I can't remember what you were using.
That was hen drench. Yeah. Man, we talked about using a lot of last call, use a lot of hen drench. That's our poultry brine, chicken brine. Man, I use it as a seasoning. It's a really, really good seasoning. Man, it's my finishing dust in most cases. So it
helps you put some salt back in your body when you're sitting there drinking on the blacktop.
I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you.
It was awesome.
Yeah, love me some hen drench.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about Rainmaker. Now, Rainmaker is not an everyday thing for somebody to purchase. I feel like this is mostly just for your backyard, or not backyard, I should say competition style of things. I'm not a big fan of phosphates, eating that on a regular, but I will feed it to judges all day long.
Right.
I got comp guys using Rainmaker. They've switched over to using Rainmaker absolute ton around here. So they'll usually mix it with something else to add some flavor on top of the phosphates. But man, that's been a great seller.
Yeah, it's basically flavorless. Rainmaker, it's barbecue phosphates with an S on the end. That's plural, not just barbecue phosphate. It's a tripoly and a hexapoly. It can get really, really complicated on the phosphate end of things, like endless, like way above me. But I can tell you right now, that's built to hold moisture and improve tenderness. So, man, long story short, that's what it's built for. And we do use Rainmaker a lot at the house too. I mean, I don't know, it's flavorless. I know what you mean, man. You get too many phosphates pumped through your system, and I don't know.
It can clear you out. It can clear you out if you use too much.
And like you say, we'll feed it to the judges all day long. Man, what's another quarter cup?
Right?
No doubt.
We want it really, really, really juicy. So.
Right. Yeah. That's awesome, man. I so want to use a lot of these rubs, I'm only familiar with the ones I've used, and I was very impressed with them. But this one that's kind of jumping out to me for, just all around cooking in the kitchen is this Texas Hill. Let's talk about that.
Yeah. So, I originally wasn't even going to release that product because I'm so competition, to an extent, I'm very competition minded. I do it a lot. That's where my focus always is. But I developed and made that recipe for Hill Country. And man, I used it a lot. Like at the house, I would blend it and I would use it. I'd take it to the deer camp. And man, one day I just didn't really know how to market it right. And it really is like good enough for competition. It just, in my mind, it wasn't, because it was so balanced. I just thought it was too balanced. And man, I'm big on layer. And so, man, we're gonna lay down this layer. We're going to go with this layer. And I really built that just so you didn't have to layer. It was just really well balanced. So I'm like, man, you know what? Why don't? And I had a lot of guys like reaching out. They were buying it in bulk, caterers, this, that, which is kind of, man, I just kind of like to have everything in the shakers. It just makes life easier, right? Like, here's cases of it. Cool. So, man, I was like, man, I'm just going to release this product. Texas Hill Country Blend is what I named it. And the theory behind that, or the thought behind it, is to be like a caterer's rub. Hey, you got, 30 leg quarters and 10 racks of ribs and 4 briskets. And there's your Hill Country blend on your leg quarters. There's your Hill Country blend on your ribs. There's your Hill Country blend on brisket, and you roll and you're going to produce really, really good barbecue. So that's kind of the premise behind Hill Country blend. I call it everything barbecue. I know we just wear out the all-purpose and the everythings and all that stuff, but man, that's what it is. So a really well-balanced rub that's good on anything you want to barbecue.
That's awesome. So let's just run through a recipe. One of our listeners, Brendan Nelson, he thinks he has his ribs dialed. So let's just blow his recipe out the water and just make him try something new. What is your process for ribs? You know,
man, I don't know what's his rib. Let's go over his first.
I have no idea what it is.
He's not
man,
sure
it ain't all gimme. Come on now.
let's just go through not your exact recipe. Let's dodge from that. What is a good recipe for somebody to cook, possibly competition or backyard with your products?
Man, as far as my products, it's really simple, and I can tell you this. Man, Bosshog with Rainmaker phosphates for an injection. Man, Rawhide last call certified or honey hole has won me a lot of competitions and a lot of money. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really, and man, that's where I'm at these days. I really don't have to get outside of that box. It's going to produce a really good rib. You know, if you want to take it more directions, there's another 20,000 sauces on the market. You can lean it in different directions as well. So, man, that's a good basic rib that's gonna do you really well.
Nice. Jesse, what would you go with if you're going to run these products?
I haven't ran his products in competition because I used Johnny Trigg's recipe forever for ribs. And he's like, when he taught classes for us when we did the Windover competition out here. And we sold out his classes 2 years in a row, $600 a pop. He goes, I'm going to give you my exact recipe. He goes, you're never going to outcook me. So we were running rib tickler and sweet heat for the rubs. And then I show up Craig, Colorado. I took third in ribs and I gave him a little wink. I'm like, thanks, Johnny. And he took like 7th or 8th. So he's like, yep, cook me this weekend.
No, really why? Because I asked, because honestly, ribs is the only category that I don't have a process for. I don't cook them enough. You know, I'm not competing enough in the rib category, so I don't really push it. I just this rub will work for this weekend, but I really need to focus in onto a product that I can rely on.
I had to change my recipe because one of those products went away. So I was like, all right, I got to figure out a new recipe. So
yeah. Is that the rib tickler, Jesse?
Yeah, that went away. Yeah,
man, it's still out there. I saw some earlier today. Yeah.
They're out of business though.
Man, I saw a dozen shakers sitting on a shelf today. So yeah,
it's probably been there for 10 years. It's fine.
It's probably 3 or 4 years old. That's been gone for a minute.
I think they came back. I think they figured out how to source them again. I can't say for sure, but man, I'm familiar with Rib Tickler, and man, 10 years ago, I can remember using some Rib Tickler, cooking some ribs, which is a great product, right? Yeah. And I think they did go away for a while, but I don't know. They've come back from the dead. They've resurfaced. I don't know. Man,
that'd be cool.
I hear there's an avenue. So
I heard about 10 years ago, everybody was just using Smoking Guns Hot. That was just the traditional rub.
Yeah. It's funny. I was in Wisconsin in June, and one of the guys came over there. I was visiting with some of the guys there. We were kind of having a conversation like this, and he's like, man, that's I don't remember something. He said Smoking Guns Hot, and I'm like, man, I don't know, I've never tried it. You're shitting me. I'm like, no, I never have. And then he brought it over. He's like, I'll let you taste it. And he did. And he let me taste it. Man, it's really good. I can see why people use it so much. Right. I hear smoking. I've only heard Smoking Gun Hots a million times, but I never tried it. And I get that a lot too. Like, what do you think about it? Like, man, I don't know. I've never tried it.
Damn, Phil, have you ever tried Blues Hog? Championship blend?
I have. Yeah. I've tried many more sauces than I have rubs and injections, let's say.
Right? Sauce is the hard part, right? I feel like rubs are solid. You can go to any of those bottles behind Jesse right now, and it will turn out a great product. But the sauce is really where it kind of gets tricky. That's when you got to doctor it up and really find your own balance. And that's when again it gets tricky for sure.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. What sauce are you running, Phil? You don't have to tell me if you don't want to, but what are your
go-tos? I like Head Country products. I like Blues Hog products. Right. Man, we've been working on sauce for a couple of years, and man, I really made a lot of headway this past fall.
Good.
I had tried a couple different directions, and just, man, packers are so busy. They don't have time for product development. I just pretty much said, man, Carmen, step aside, get out of the kitchen, man. I'm going to work. And man, I started, just cooking sauce on the stove, trying to get where I wanted to. And man, I think I've got it exactly where I want. So man, it's a good possibility in a couple months we'll have our first sauce out. So
Oh,
a lot of
breaking
time
news.
doing it. I do, like you said, there's just so many sauces out there. They go so many directions, and I've always taken a lot of pride in what I put in a bottle or a shaker, and want to make sure that's something I want to reach for every time I cook. So we're really, really close on sauce.
See, I don't honestly, Jesse, you might be able to counter this a little bit, but I don't think there's a competition bottle of sauce that comes straight out of the bottle that I can add to the product immediately. Even the, Blues Hog, we all add a butter, apple juice or something to thin that out, but I don't think there's an actual competition blend where you can just go from bottle to product. Am I wrong?
No, I'm always mixing a couple of sauces together, and depending on the thickness or the shine that it gives you, you add a little bit of another product to try to get that shine, that pretty shine on your product. But yeah, most of the time I'm mixing 2 or 3 different sauces together when I'm trying to work it out.
See, I think that avenue needs to be attacked by the sauce makers.
I will say this: the viscosity on ours is a 20, which is a 24 is a run out. So it is much thinner than some of your thicker sauces out there, which, man, that seems to be a problem. Like, we can heat them, that makes them thinner or whatever, but they're still a thick sauce. So I did want to develop something. I felt like there's a void in the market of thin style sauces that are ready to roll. So,
So do you heat up your sauces before you apply them?
I do. It just kind of depends on the combination, Jesse. To what temp I got different temperatures I heat different ones up to. But yeah, I try to get them to the right flow that I want, depending on the combinations I'm running.
Yeah. So what is that flow for, you've cooked a ton. What is that flow? Are we talking like, excuse me, are we talking like spoon coating, spoon where it's running off the spoon? How can somebody find the right consistency that they're looking for, those backyard guys or anybody who's getting into competition? Pro tip.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's just take one we're all familiar with, like just say Blues Hog Original out of the, right. It's a, and especially at room temperature, we just bought it at Walmart. We open it up and that's pretty thick sauce.
Yeah.
Man, I'm going to want to go probably in the 140 to 150 range with Blues Hog to get it more pliable to where it will run off a spoon and not drip off a spoon. If you're kind of running through there like syrup, it's really just, you're going to start getting those comments, man, it's too saucy. What's too saucy because the sauce wasn't hot enough and you applied too much. Right. So, man, heat is probably the number one way I'll manipulate my sauces.
Yeah.
Got it. And then are you adding product after you sauce, or are you on the top, or are we applying on the bottom just for the palate? What is another pro tip for people to, give it that extra pop in the,
like a finishing does?
Yeah. Are you doing that? Yeah.
Yeah. I'll put hand drench in a shaker, and I've got those, Jesse, you probably sell them, but the little clear shakers with the different lids.
Yep.
And as I get down to where I'm, dusting, I'll just put the finer lid on there. I won't even grind it. And man, I just shake that. So, man, hand drench to me, man, it's been work really good. Man, I like it so much on my beer. Why would I not like that on my barbecue? So.
Right. Well, and hand drench is an injection.
Well, it's a brine. Yeah, it's our chicken brine. So, man, that's why I like to say there's no rules. I mean, if I don't put anything on there, man, I'd never stop answering questions, right? And I never intended that when I released the product. I had Charles Tant took my class, and he's like, Phil, man, that's a really good rub. I've been using them. I'm like, that's a great idea. So I did. And I'm like, shit, he ain't lying. It is good. So, man, I don't always think of these ideas. They get thought of for me. And that's kind of how that developed.
Right.
That helps when you have all your sponsored teams giving you feedback, what they're doing with your products, and kind of gives you different ideas of what other teams are doing with your products and having success with it.
Yeah. And classes do too. I do teach a lot of classes. I've taught hundreds of people. I'll probably teach about 100 people a year. And for whatever reason in classes, people like to tell you, I'm telling them what I do, but they really like to tell you what they do too. And man, a lot of times they have some really good ideas. I'm like, man, I never thought of that, but I'm gonna try it. So
doing some shigging in your own classes.
yeah, I do. I cook a lot. I do try things. I develop products. So, man, I think if it was just rinse and repeat, and man, the same thing running 50 times a year, I would be bored to death. So I do like to try things out there, and I've got go-tos, and man, I've got the cooking techniques that I use, and man, those are tried and true and old steadies for me. I rarely change any of that stuff, but man, recipes, there's millions. So,
and then you're rolling around in your trailer, what is that custom pit that you have on the back of your trailer? Is that something that's one of your buddies have made up, or what are you doing with that? Because I thought you were going to be releasing your own pit one of these times.
Yeah, I am. So that pit I built back in 2015 with the help of a couple buddies, and been cooking on that for 10 years. I've cooked, other than when I travel, right? Sometimes I'll travel and borrow some drums or this or that, but 98% of the time I've cooked on that pit rolling around on the back of my trailer. That's what we now call a Breeden smoker. And we're building those and selling those pits. It's an offset. It's a reverse flow. It's fully insulated, firebox and cooking chamber. Yeah. And it's done me so good. And I kind of had the idea like, well, what if I built those and sold them? Like, I got to figure out a lot of logistics in doing all that. And it didn't happen fast, but Bill Purvis, Chicken Fried Barbecue, he's like, man, if you did, I would buy one. I'm like, okay, well, why don't we there was a few things I would modify on mine, improvements, of course. And man, I think we started last March, and he picked up his pit in December. So a lot of that was, kind of on the fly adjustments of dialing in exactly what we wanted for those models. And man, mine should be done in a couple of weeks. So I'm going to retire that pit that I built 10 years ago. And I'll be rolling around with the 2.0 model on the back of my porch.
Just bring them both when you come back to Utah. You just drop one off at my house, and I'll just
I
take
get
care of
dibs
it for you.
I get dibs.
No, I brought it up. So
and we'll build you one any way you want, Jesse. The cool part about those, about them is, they're fully insulated, the firebox and the cooking chamber. Man, I'm cooking at 300 degrees, and I can put a temp gun in these mild temperatures we have right now, and the back of my pit's going to be reading like 55 degrees. So it just doesn't get hot. And mine they're going to be powder coated, so you can go through all the millions of colors of the powders and pick out exactly what color you want. Man, mine's going to be a gold sparkle, kind of like a black and gold bass boat. Bubba.
and that's the other thing with an insulated firebox and chamber. You're using not a bunch of fuel in that thing.
And we cook with candles. That's the way I like to call it. We cook with candles.
Nice.
I don't use much fuel. I use roll oak lump. I'll use about roughly half a bag of cookoff, and then the wood chunks, the little, I don't know what volume that is, but the little bag, I just use chunks. I don't even use splits because it's too much fuel. So I'll just use the chunks, and I'll go through maybe 2/3 of that small bag of chunks of cookoff. So no, I don't use fuel.
That's awesome. Well, we're coming to the hour mark, but before we go, I want to talk about this class that you're holding March 22nd and 23rd. It's not on the cheaper side of classes. You pay for what you get. We're going to go through chicken, ribs, pork, and brisket. Can you give us a little bit of rundown how that class is going to?
Yeah, for sure. I've been teaching that class for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years, I guess, something like that. And I say that class, my class. And the way we do it is, it's basically like a shadow class, except we have, whatever, 15, 20 people. I don't like it to be over 20, 15 to 20.
I don't either.
It's kind of my sweet spot because, we've had some, 25 or whatnot. And that's just, the shop is it's a 35 by 30. So we're right at 1,000 square feet. And, you pack any more people in there than that. It's kind of crowded. We've got tables for everyone. So you're sitting at a table as opposed to like stadium seat or just sitting in a chair, just because I know if I was sitting there, I would want a table to write notes on. Carmen cooks the meals that we provide, and she's a world-class cook. So, man, we've yet to have anybody lose weight after taking our class. We're going to feed you really.
I love it when you keep it intimate like that, because I don't like going over 20 people for my classes either. Like when I used to cook classes for Traeger, I mean, there would be 50 people in those classes.
Yeah,
and you don't get that interaction.
Man, there's nothing wrong with that too. Like if it's a 50-person class, I don't think that's a $1,250 class, right? Because it's got to be a little bit cookie cutter to an extent, just to roll. It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm teaching when you come take my class, I'm teaching what I'm doing right now. Start to finish. I'm going through my Friday night routines, start to finish. I'm talking about the same thing everybody else does, but man, this is exactly what I do. I don't hold anything back. I tell you anything. Man, I love questions. People ask questions. I answer their questions. They think of things I don't. And we're able to do that just because it's not a super large, class, or else we don't get done, right? We don't make turn-ins. But so we do that. And I've converted to Saturday, Sunday these days. It used to be a Friday, Saturday class. And a couple of years ago, I'm like, man, we can do this on Saturday and Sunday. It seems to make more sense. People can travel Friday, come take the class. We don't start till Saturday afternoon around 4:00 or so. And we'll run through about 9:00, and which is my typical Friday routine. That's that slot to cover all that stuff. And then, man, we'll wake up Sunday morning at 6, and man, I'll run my normal cook-off that I do. And of course, everybody's watching and taking notes and asking questions. And then I'll do my turn-ins. I'm running it on CBA format, which is turn-ins are noon, 1, 2, and 3 with the hour gap. And man, it really kind of helps because, KCBS being so jammed up, if you're trying to do that in real time, it can kind of get, to a point where you don't have time to answer all the questions to be able to still turn it in or whatnot. But it works out really good on that timeline. And that's kind of the rundown on the class.
Again, the nearest international airport would be San Antonio, right?
That's correct. It's about an hour from us.
So the class is in San Antonio?
No, it's here in Bandera. Yeah, it's at LC headquarters, about an hour outside of San Antonio.
Nice.
Perfect. Well, all right, let's wrap this up. Go ahead and let people know where to find you, and maybe if they want to have some questions that pop up that they may want to ask you, where can they do that at?
Yeah, for sure. So, man, I'm on social media. I've got Philip Breeden Facebook, LC BBQ Facebook page, Instagram, LC BBQ. All those have messaging capabilities. Want to get a hold of me. And then, man, you can find all our products at your favorite retailer, or, directly from lcbbqshop.com.
No, just come to Pitmaster Supply Company, Layton, 5 Points, and West Jordan.
Man, there you go. And Jesse will take care of you guys,
yes,
right?
Sir. Yes, it will.
In Utah, he will. Outside of Utah, yes, use that.
We do really appreciate our retailers, and they do a fantastic job. So if we're not, for those who are listening, if you've got your favorite retailer around you that don't carry ours, man, the way we've gotten in, everyone we've gotten in so far is by you asking. So, man, ask your retailer to carry it. They'll reach out to us, and we'd be glad to be in there.
Sounds good. Well, thanks, Phil. Thanks for joining us tonight. I feel like there was some information in there for hopefully people can learn
great
something.
Information.
Yeah, and being able to purchase your product and see if you can get more wins underneath those rubs.
Man,
tell Bill we said hello.
Yeah, we'll do it. We'll do it.
All right, boss.
Thanks, guys. I really enjoyed it. This was a fun one.
Have a good night now.
Thank you.
All right, see you.